All right. Good morning.
Hi, how's it going, Jean?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this
So
morning?
excited to be here. So excited to chat with you per usual.
Oh my gosh, same here. um, I wanted to kind of tell our viewers, hopefully we'll have some new viewers coming on to watch our stuff, but little brief synopsis of what we're doing here. Jen Snyder and I, Jean Atman, we tend to love to be in each other's company, and we get on these chats sometimes, and 4 hours later we're still talking about all these things, and amazing insights and epiphanies come through, and we always say, gosh, we should have recorded that. That was so amazing, all that stream of consciousness that just came through. And so we decided, instead of continuing to say, let's record, we decided just to record it and put it out there for everybody that is interested in hearing our Sunday morning musings. So this is where we're at. And I just wanted to quickly, as this is our first official video together, just introduce ourselves. And so Jen, I would love for you to tell our potential audience just a little bit about you so they can get, kind of a little gist of who we are or what we're doing here.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jean. So Jen Snyder here. I am the author of the HMS Logbook, which is a self-awareness journal that I have published for the last 7 years. I have actually decided to take a little break from the journal. So check back, I might be publishing the 2021 version, but for now I am focusing on sovereignty. I teach empowerment. I am a counselor for teenage groups of teenagers. I am a mom of one daughter. She is a 22-year-old living in California who just came home on Friday for her first visit since January, since she moved out in January. So if you notice that I have permagrin today, that will be why. She's sleeping peacefully in her bedroom. So yeah, and just really interested in challenging the narrative and opening up really expansive dialogue. And so yeah, really excited to chat with you today, Jean. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm Jean Atman, and I don't ever really know what to call myself because I do kind of a plethora of things, but all in all, I'm call myself like a self-mastery mentor, a spiritual teacher, ascension coach, all of that sort of thing. I help people to uplift their vibrations so they can live in the type of life that they desire, as opposed to the old ways of being that just don't work and are really, really clearly don't work anymore. So that's sort of what I do, my contributions to humanity. And I'm just fiercely dedicated to my own process of evolution, as well as anybody who'd like to come with me. And throughout the years, I've learned that it's not my responsibility to drag everybody with me who's kicking and screaming, who wants to stay stuck, but I'm definitely inviting those that would like to come with me, because I've been finding that it's a lot more fun on the other side of all the BS. So this is kind of what our little agenda is today, is to hopefully offer some insights, offer some new information. We sort of like to challenge our own belief systems just because that's how we grow. So we really want to cultivate a space of growth, evolution, non-judgment, non-discrimination. If you don't like what we're talking about, it's okay to click off. If you're engaged with it, or if you feel compelled towards listening, we welcome you here with open arms. We're not here to tell everybody or anybody that this is right, this is wrong. We don't even really believe that that's, I'm speaking for both of us here, if that resonates with you, Jen, or not. Okay, thumbs up. But there is no right or wrong. And we're going to kind of talk about all the gray areas in between that people kind of tend to get stuck in or lost in. So, and we just decided that this is going to be a totally casual conversation. We're just going to share ideas, and whatever comes out, comes out. So here we go. So before this recording started, we just started talking a little bit about what was coming through for us each in this time that we're in. What's the relevant energy? And so I would love to kind of pass the mic over to Jen a little bit and get some ideas or insights about what you've been feeling so strongly about, what you've been experiencing and witnessing, and share any insights about that.
You know, wow, I used to say it depends on the day, and these days it really depends on the moment. There's so much coming in for me on the daily, on the reg, and so much is, there's so many relevant topics right now. It's really, it's really expansive to think about how many different directions that we could go into. And I think that we were really wise to say, let's just let's just call this down to a few themes today, because again, we tend to the 4 and 5 hour conversations. But, you know, I was thinking this morning as I shared with you that I pulled some cards, some oracle cards before, when I got, after I had my breakfast, and I got really still, and I just wanted to see what came in for me. And flexibility, discernment, and truth were the 3 cards that I pulled from 3 different decks. And that got me to thinking about I guess it's a metaphor that I have been considering these past few months, since everything has really, I don't even know how to say it, but we've definitely moved into a new era of life in this year, 2020. As we all knew, that, you know, everyone that's been following astrology, we knew that this would be a really challenging year. All for our good and our benefit. But one of the things that it's a metaphor. I'm certain that this is written down, you know, by our elders. I'm certain that there's a story about this. I haven't identified it yet, but I just had the image of 2 people walking down a road. One is a fool, one is a genius. The genius and the fool together. And you know, the genius has one idea, the fool has a different idea. The genius has one idea, the fool has a different idea. They continue on down the path of life. The genius says one really brilliant thing, the fool says one really stupid thing. And, you know, throw in all the theatrics that you want, but by the time you get to the end of the road, the reader realizes that they are the same person. The genius and the fool are the same person, right?
Brilliant.
So, and then again, I know this has to be an old idea, and I'm certain that in probably every culture there is either written or spoken metaphor, symbology, you know, whatever, you know, about it that they teach the children. But to me, this is one of the most relevant of a million different relevant themes right now. This is one of the most important ones, is that we understand this concept, or begin to make room for the possibility that a person can be a genius and a fool simultaneously, that both of these concepts can exist simultaneously in a movement, in a person, in anything, everything. You know, because I really see when I look out my window, and I every once in a while peek into the media, because I tend to stay very far away from that, but I do every once in a while peek in and see what's happening. And what it seems to me is that everyone is arguing basically the same thing, but from different points of view. And I see this inflexibility to actually see that something, that the duality in things, that a person can be an idiot and a fool at the same time, a genius and a fool at the same time.
Or both at once, you know.
I mean, yeah. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I love that you bring that up, just because I'm seeing, kind of recognizing within myself, even witnessing where people are in their evolutionary path, as well as myself, and seeing where my old belief systems were. And that's the work that I do as I'm working with private clients, and through my coursework is I teach people how to identify those limiting beliefs in order to change them. Right? Because if we constantly believe we are not abundant, we are not lovable, we are not worthy, that becomes our reality. And so, but sometimes those belief systems are so ingrained, and we subscribe to them long before we knew we were subscribing to them, that we don't even know that that's what we believe, but our life is reflecting that. So these people get stuck in these belief systems, and I like to challenge those to say, what if this could be different? So within each person's narrative, that is their truth. So the idiot might believe certain things because they just haven't gained the wisdom yet to, be in their mode of genius. And I think that our path here and our evolutionary path is to find those places of genius and to come into a more expanded, evolved state of being. And so within witnessing all of these narratives, there are so many narratives right now because it's a lot of the 3D density and it's a lot of the 5D, of 3D density, third density, fifth density, but it's a lot of all of it all at once, and transitional energies from the fourth. So we're moving through, and all of these are activated right now. And some, part of the 3D is starting to die off, starting to dissolve and disintegrate, break down. A lot of the old structures that aren't working are breaking down. We're transitioning through the 4D and we're coming into the 5, and it's very active right now for those of us that are looking at it. And the only thing we need to do right now is look there, open to the potential of it, as opposed to focusing on all the stuff that's not working. And so, whatever, check in with these people and then the narratives, wherever you are, whatever your life is reflecting to you is the narrative that you're telling yourself. And if you're seeing something that you don't like, you can change that. And that's what's so beautiful about this time. And what I love, I'm an intense person. I like intensity. I thrive in intensity. I'm like, not drama, but just like a lot of energy and feeling and passion and fierce emotions. And I can swim in that stuff all day because it just invigorates, And when people, when you can take the intensity of the times that we're in as excitement as opposed to fear or anxiety, those are very close on the spectrum, anxiety and excitement. It's very close, but it's the perception, right, of negative versus positive. If they continue to focus on the positive narrative, that's the outcome. And that's what we're all moving into right now. And I feel like, and I'm witnessing a lot of the old trauma that's surfacing right now that people are trying to combat. And what I've seen through my own energy healing practice is if you focus on the trauma, you activate it. It's not about the details of the past and the details of the pain and all these things that you suffered. It's literally about recognizing I was hurt and I didn't like that and I'm ready to heal. That's the movement. It's not to focus on all the details of the trauma and re-anchoring that into your system and reanimating it. That's the last thing you want to do, is pull up and re-energize that energy within you. Look at it. And I see this as a culture of things that we're battling through right now, as personal growth that people are working through, as independent from the collective. There's just so much that we can either ground ourselves into the old pain, or we can decide to look for a better future and focus there. Not activating the pain, recognizing it's there, and move on to something better. And for me, I've always been kind of a forward thinker. It took me a long time actually to figure this out. I would put a lot of things into practice. I would get downloads about, we're supposed to do this. This is, I'm feeling so strongly about cultivating this group energy with people. And so in 2012, I'm collecting practitioners and I'm organizing things and I'm opening holistic centers and I'm like, let's do this. Well, it wasn't even time to implement that sort of work yet. So it was hard. Now we're in this place where we can recognize you can have this, you can be this, and this person can be that too. And we can work together without a lot of ego. I tried to implement this long before the collective was ready. And I realized in this gift of kind of prophetic thinking that it's very important that we wait for when the time is right. Otherwise, there's a lot of energy that goes out into something that's not going to come to fruition. So from that experience, I learned if it's a struggle, number one, it might not be for you. Number two, it might not be time. So it's okay. Yep.
Jazz hands. That's so important. That's such a big, timing is everything. Continue. I just had to really highlight that.
Well, no, we can come back around because I feel like there's so much I could go on. So I would love your inputs on all of that or anything else that you'd like to include.
Okay, so just want to say, I caught, if I were taking notes, which I am mentally, I caught about 10 different topics, 10 different directions that we could have gone out from just that little bit that you said, which was just so expansive. But I want to circle back on what you said about what we're focusing on right now. So when those of us in the metaphysical arena, we know that focus creates reality. Focus creates reality. Okay, so back to what you said about when we're digging up all of these things that we need to look at, right? And baby girl's up, and so we're looking we're looking at you know, in astrologically speaking, we've been preparing for this year. For those of you that don't know the HMS logbook, it's heavy on the astrological aspect. My purpose was to bring awareness to the astrology just as an awakening tool, a learning tool, an awareness tool. So those of us who are in that arena, we have been preparing for this year. For me personally, for 5 years, we've been talking about these intense aspects that Pluto is making in the sign of Capricorn, bringing awareness to the underbelly, the shadow of our government, of things that are hidden in the patriarchy, the banking system, the medical authority. It's just so expansive to see how all of these things are actually happening. And bringing it back to what you were just mentioning about the shadow and how so much is coming up for everyone, and the timing of this year being what it is, we want to set the timer on when we are looking at the shadow. It's very easy to just dive, as you were saying, just dive into that pain, that agony, wallow around in it, pour it over your head, drag in your best friend, your parents, the therapist, all of the, let's just reactivate, invigorate that dark, awful energy, and I'm just going to bake myself in it every day. I'm going to eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay, so you get the point. What I like to tell or share is to set the timer on that. We have to look at these things. In order, darkness is allowed to exist, pervades in darkness. When we shine the light on it, when we shine our awareness on darkness, it disappears or it comes up for healing, but it cannot exist in the light. Okay. So we have to see it. We have to look at it. This is where we want to set the timer, because that wallowing, you charge that energy, you focus creates reality, you intensify, right? So that is so important, I think, because some folks, you know, in this time of a restricted lifestyle that we are living, where some folks can't go, it's those old numbing patterns that we have had that have helped us deal with all that is hidden. So we do our work and then we come home and we numb it out. So those distractions. So that has been interrupted in March. It was completely interrupted. The ball game is not on. Can't distract yourself with that. Can't go to the bar after work and have cocktails with the girls. Can't distract yourself with that. So all of those modes of distraction have been restricted. And so we have been literally, it's like our eyelids are just being like held open. We have to look at the shadow. And so, you know, everyone is looking at things that they have perhaps not ever looked at. So we have basically a world in reaction, right? And so in that reactive state where we don't have the tools required, we don't have a meditation practice. If you don't have a health coach, a life coach, a self-mastery coach, a spiritual coach, any guidance whatsoever, it's like a free fall, right? So I see a lot of that right now, and it's just a lot of charged energy, and a lot of people on the battlefield. You're challenging me, you are triggering me, I need you to be this way so that I'm not triggered, you know, all of this stuff. And And unfortunately, right now, because of the timing of where we are in the ascension process, focus creates reality. And right now, from my perspective, focus creates reality times or to the 10th power, wouldn't you say? So we've got a whole awakening crew that's looking at the depths of their shadows and freaking out, but they don't have the tools to deal with it. So they're actually creating growth in those areas that need to be loved and held and integrated, big word, integrated, and dealt with. Set the timer on that. Let's look to what we do want to create instead of focusing on what we don't want, right?
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And I love everything in simplest form. I love, because face it, we're human. We don't like to do things that are complicated, and we won't do things that are hard or complicated. So break it down to simple form, and when you can see, you can choose to continue to live in the old ways, or you can choose something different. It is a choice. And I think as people, we forget that we have that choice. And we can choose something different. And just because, I was thinking about it this morning, so much comes through for me first thing in the morning in channel. It's like a constant stream of things. And to pick out all the important ones that were coming through this morning, one of them was triggers. And I love that you brought up the word trigger, because when people are in suffering, so they're in this density, this state, and I see this as sort of like strata layers. We're in this layer of 3D. And just briefly, 3D, for those that don't know that terminology, the third density contains a lot of heavier type feelings, the jealousy, the envy, the greed, the struggle, the lack, all of that, unworthiness, all of that is kind of in the lower density. So our whole process of ascension is to lift from the lower densities into a higher density. So it kind of dissolves the heaviness, the congestion that's in our energetic field, and we can lift up to a better feeling place. And so what happens in the fourth density is more of a transitional energy. You're starting to purge through the old stuff, you're starting to integrate into the new. And when you lift up into the fifth, which is part of this ascension process that we're undergoing right now, is amazing things: synchronicity, opportunity, joy, love, abundance. All of these things reside in the upper levels of density, because you're not tethered to the hard stuff, to the heavy stuff, to the dense stuff. So we're in this process of releasing this old energy. So people that are really clutching onto their suffering, wanting to stay, feeling that there's a change coming, but not really sure or feeling safe enough to embrace or embody the change, are the ones that are clinging to their suffering. So those of you that know what I'm talking about, check in and see, am I holding my suffering, and do I need to? And the answer is absolutely equivocally no, you do not need to hold your suffering. And just check in. Some people might even be addicted to suffering just because it's been a natural state of being for so long that they don't even realize that life could be something different. But it can be. And when you're in that space of recognizing that you want change, just think about letting the old stuff go. Just think, what if? Or I love, this was an Abraham thing when Jerry was channeling, and he said, wouldn't it be nice if? And I love to use that form. Wouldn't it be nice if? Because sometimes when we're angry and we're suffering and we're in lack, and somebody tells you to think positively, you're like, F you. I can't reach that place, But if you start to give yourself that opportunity to say, wouldn't it be nice if this were to feel different? Wouldn't it be nice if I wouldn't be in the struggle? Wouldn't it be nice if everything was taken care of? So you can start to open to that potential of the feeling. Because as we know, feeling creates our vibration. Feeling makes up our energy body. Emotions make up our energy. So we can always, always, always change that based on how we feel. And like Jen said about triggers, when people are working with triggers, let's use jealousy. That's a really easy one to use, right? So let's say you're out for lunch with your significant other, and this beautiful person walks in, and you instantly get triggered with insecurity, and you feel a sense of jealousy towards your partner, right? And you blame them because they happen to glance in the direction of that person or whatever happened. And then you start to fight, and you're wanting that person to change so you feel better. That's a classic kind of stream of trigger. But what we can do when we're working within that trigger is to feel, okay, so I was triggered into this heavy, dense feeling. It invoked something in me that did not feel good. And instead of projecting that insecurity onto your significant other, the first step in alleviating suffering is to take responsibility for your stuff. And when you can say, oh, I just don't feel good because of this situation that happened, and it was everything within me that made me feel this way. And so you can choose in that moment to look for the good in your partner, to look for the good in yourself. Anything you can do to get yourself in a better feeling state will help to lift your vibration, to move you out of the trigger. But recognize if someone did something that made you not feel good, it's got nothing to do with them and everything to do with you. And when you take responsibility for your stuff, you can move through it. But you have to stop with, looking for the external movements to make change. When you come from within, you can change anything. And Jen, I'll pass this back to you, but I recognized this morning, about how people, and myself included, I was a master at creating things I didn't want for a really long time. And as we learn to kind of turn that ship around, you start to learn that you can be just as masterful at creating everything you do want when you recognize you have a choice. And so that's where it all begins. Choose something better for yourself, and shift that momentum into something good, because as much as we've created what we don't want, we can also create what we do.
Yeah, I love how you said that. And I think it's one of the most important things that we can remember in these times is that we are either focusing on what we don't want, and that focus can look like different things. It can be that rabbit hole, diving deep, deep, deep with the microscope and picking apart all the things that are wrong. Okay, that's focusing on what we don't want. And again, it's really important to make the distinction that we must see the dark, dark underbelly before we can fix it. Be this the underbelly, the dark shadow of this, that, or the other. It doesn't really matter what topic it is. My internal stuff, my programming from when I was 4 years old, what our government does to disparage minority groups. Take your pick. It doesn't really matter. We have to look at it. We have to shine the light on it to see it. But when we get in that microscope, and I call it the microscopic perspective, that's really good for a minute. We got to look at it. But when we are just focused in that, like picking apart, looking, arguing, proving, defending, all of those things, in this era of focus creates reality, that doesn't serve us. So either we're doing that, or we are creating what we do want. We are either focused on what we don't want, or we're creating what we do want. So it's in what I think is the best way to just begin. If you are hearing these words and you're thinking to yourself, hey, maybe I am pulling out the microscope too much, and so how do I back away from that? So my first, and trust me, I understand this. My perspective is from my own personal experience. I've had 2 microscopes in my hand at times in my life where I am looking at all of the dark, dirty levels of my own behavior, of my own programming, of everything in my perspective, right? So I've done this, and I know how that makes me feel. And at the end of the day, it's all about, how does that make you feel? So how do you back off of that? If you find yourself doing these things and in this sort of rut of focusing on the negative, first seek balance. So I would say the first thing that I would recommend trying is to just say, okay, if I'm going to spend an hour researching and trying to understand and looking at these problems from all different perspectives, then I'm also going to spend in that same day an hour on imagining. And active also can look like passive in this perspective, is imagining what it is that you would like to see instead. Like Jerry says, what if, what would it look, what would happen if? I'm going to stay open and curious. Okay, here I'm going to be hyper analytical, and that does serve its purpose in certain moments. But then I'm going to balance that hyper analytical with just dropping into my heart space and saying, what would it feel like if the whole world understood equality in all ways? How would it feel? What would that look like? How could we create as a culture in a world where all beings were not only created equal, as we know that they are, but treated with equality and respect, without exception, without question, without loopholes or hangups, or without judgment. So if that looks like a journaling exercise to you, wonderful. If that's a conversation with your best friend, great. Call up your friend and say, hey, we're not going to bitch about the problem for the next hour. Let's try something different. Let's put on our thinking, our imagination caps, and imagine what this world would look like, free from all, or not only free from, just what would it look like instead, right? So this is an exercise I love to do with my teenagers, especially because they've received far less programming than my generation, and certainly the older generations, but is to say, hey, I'm going to take you through your perfect day. And we do this meditation where it's called future pulling. So I say, you're asleep, you're about to wake up. I want you to imagine your perfect day. And I take them through this exercise. Nobody tells you what to do. You are the boss of every minute of your day. You have all that you need. Money is not an object. You have everything that you want. A Ferrari in the garage, it's there. Great. What color is it? How does it feel when you're driving it? So we go through this wonderful exercise of imagination to the 10th power. Okay. And then we come out of it, we pick up the pens, and I ask them to journal about this as if they were remembering the day that they woke up and every one of their dreams came true. So you're not only imagining what that feels like, you're remembering what it felt like. And that aspect, that step of this wonderful process really anchors in, and it somehow bypasses the idea is to bypass the logical brain, because the logical brain is going to be like, how are you going to make it? No, you don't have that much. How's that going to, you're only 15. How are you going to, you can't even drive, you don't even have a driver's license. What are you doing with a Ferrari? So anyway, we bypass that logical brain, which is an invaluable experience. As much as you can do that, I would say do that. Bypassing that logical brain and staying in your imagination is really the big deal here, because that way it already happened. So you already are experiencing and reaping the rewards. There's no talking yourself out of it because, oh no, it already happened. I'm just remembering it. Right. Yeah. So that's what I would say. If you're finding yourself, and we definitely want to give you some ideas about how to move out of this loop. And I would definitely call it a loop of trauma. It's a trauma loop, right? So get out of that trauma loop, do something to make yourself feel better. And sometimes that can be as passive as putting on your thinking cap, your imagination cap, and imagining the perfect experience, the perfect world, and then writing about it, talking about it, and notice how your vibration changes instantly when you do something like that. It's a real gift for yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. And I could feel the energy, because a lot of times people do stagnate in trying to envision something for themselves. But if they've never experienced it, they can't reach it cognitively. you know, but when we can allow our imagination to come forward and to feel, that's where we create the experiences. Again, coming back to vibration, when you can feel that, then you can become that. When we think about something, it's like the ideas are sort of these etheric little things that flitter around us and kind of impose on us. But when you feel, you embody that, you take it in and you become that. And I love the let's reflect on what already happened. And because I could feel as you were talking about it, the difference in energy, and it's so much more vital and resonant than to reach, just trying to reach, you know. So I love that exercise. I feel it feels really, really potent and powerful. And I also love that you brought up balance, because that's such a huge facet of what we're moving through today. You know, I see this a lot, is the old ways of being are very black and white, the duality is insane. And it's either you're selfish or you're self-sacrificing. There was no in between, you know, and so all these really opposite ends of the spectrum are now starting to gently move into middle ground and a lot of gray area. And what exists here? And what exists here is that balance, is where I can take care of myself and not feel like I'm taking from someone else. That's the old ways of being. And we weren't even taught that there was an access point to this middle ground of, when I honor myself, I also honor you. That didn't exist before, to the place where we could even reach it, until this ascension energy really, I mean, we've been working towards this for a long time. Let's not, you know, let's be honest, but some of us longer than others. It feels like a long journey sometimes. But we have arrived in this place now where we have the ability to access these places. And energetically speaking, as far as the collective, because the Earth's energy is lifting and uplifting, all of the Earth's inhabitants are also resonating with this new frequency. And as we lift up into the new energy, the old stuff can't stay. It has to purge. It has to go somewhere. And so when you do something like Jen's exercise and really help yourself, it's almost like you break through to the next platform, because you're not focusing on anchoring in the old, but you're literally giving yourself permission to access something better. And you're feeling it, which then becomes your vibration. And the more people that do that collectively, they showed me this a while ago too. And they, for those of you that don't know, it's guidance. I'll say they a lot. People are like, who's they? Who are you talking about? So putting that out there, it's guidance. But they showed me that before, with the Earth grid, there was little places where there was an explosion of energy here that kind of broke through the density, and another one over here, and then another one over here. But now we're getting large amounts of movement that's opening all of it. And so the more people that collectively move this type of energy, the more everyone else can as well. So this is a really important piece of the work that I do too, is when you're coming from a place of especially overgiving, a lot of, you know, it's the old ways of, you have to sacrifice yourself for the sake of others, and you're selfish if you think about, you need to take a moment for yourself, and all those old BS ways that were just painful and increased a lot of suffering. We're in this place now where they show me what happens when someone takes care of themselves. And let's say if you're asked to do something, you know, you're asked to do a favor for a friend or whatever, and you're overextended and you're spent, and you're like, oh God, I don't want to do this, and I have to do this because this person's counting on me, and whatever. And you know, you have a choice in that time to go into the old ways of being where I have to, or you can choose to say, I really need to focus on me for a second. And it's okay to say no, and to say, I love you and I'm here for you, but I just can't right now. And what happens is there's a lot of the old ways of being will bring guilt sometimes if you're not used to saying no, and you're like, oh, I'm going to hurt that person's feelings and I should, but I really can't. And there's this internal struggle and conflict that starts to brew. But if you say no, all of a sudden you give yourself this chance to feel relief and release of obligation. And you also give that person access and permission to find something that works better for them as well. And I teach this a lot about highest good. Years ago, a friend of mine said to me, what would your life look like if you only did things for your highest good?
Mm.
I was like, damn, a lot different than what it does right now. And I started asking myself, whenever there was a decision that came my way and I wasn't sure, or I felt like, oh, I need to, but I don't want to, I would stop and I would say, is this for my highest good? And a lot of times I got no. And then it was, practicing saying no. And then it was practicing not feeling guilty by saying no. And then it was owning my saying no because I saw what happened when I said no. I saw that it not only served me, but it also served that other person even better. It's like, think about if you're in a relationship that you're staying into far too long because you think this person needs you, they're dependent on you, they might be clingy, they might be whatever. And you're like, oh, I don't know if they would be okay without me, so I'm just going to be here and be there for them and continue to show up. And what does is it keeps everybody small. It keeps you feeling suffocated. It keeps the other person not owning their own sense of empowerment and creating this dependency on someone else. It doesn't serve anyone. But if you say, you know what, I love you, but I love myself more and I have to, and it's okay to do that. And to back away from something that's not serving you, what you do is you love that person enough to release them.
Mm.
And you trust in their own journey to say, I know that you got this. I know you can find your sense of empowerment. I know that you have the courage and the strength to move through this for yourself and on your own. And I have faith that you can do that. I have that much faith in you. So go and do that. And I'm going to go and do this. And it's so serving and honoring of each person within that type of experience. So when we're doing things for our highest good, we're serving everyone, especially the collective. Because I'm circling back around really quickly, but when you do for your highest good, I see how the energy manipulates within that situation. So when you are focusing on you, the collective energy is exponential that moves out from that shift because it is anchored into something so much more deep and resonant within the collective energy that makes bigger movements than saying yes to that person in the interim and pacifying that need for this day. I mean, that it literally, it'll go this far and then it drops and it plummets and it creates more density. But when you choose you, it uplifts the whole in such amazing and powerful ways. And so for all those givers out there that are nervous about saying no, you are actually able to give more when you say no, because that energy that is created from that dynamic reaches far beyond what any of us can even fathom.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Your language, sorry to interrupt. I just have to say your language is so inspiring and magical. I love the way you are putting this in place. I just wanted to just emphasize what you just described is what we call doing the work. Yes. Right? That's the work. It's very, very scary to say, oh, I'm going to say no. They want me to say yes. I feel like I should say yes. I don't want to say yes. I'm going to say no. Oh my God, that's such a scary thought. And then you get those waves of guilt. But by standing in your truth, speaking your truth, acting in your truth, that is, I love simplifying things. I think it's really important to these lofty concepts to just actually define them. It's very simple. When we say doing the work, that means acting in your own best interest, which then in turn empowers everyone else, because you're charging that victim template when you say, oh, well, they really need me and I don't really want to do this. So you kind of half-ass, that's half-ass energy that it doesn't serve anyone, right? It's so important. It's so important to do that work, as hard as that is. And that's this discomfort that you're going to feel, but keep going. Like I encourage, if that's a new concept, keep going with that. Right.
Yes. And, I love that word discomfort. Even I used to teach a class back in the day that literally said, getting comfortable within the discomfort to avoid suffering. Like when you can find that you're okay in a little bit of discomfort, you do alleviate chronic and perpetual suffering, and know that it's temporary. this everything is temporary, and we think, oh, we don't want to do that because we're going to feel that way forever and ever. No, that's not true. It's temporary until you learn to release it. And what's so beautiful about this, the element of learning to process, it's basically processing your emotions, is at first, it's like anything that we try, we're not going to be masterful at it. It's going to get messy. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to face plant a couple times, but it's all just practice. Life here is just practice. And I think what stagnates people is they put so much pressure on themselves to be able to do something right. It's okay to not do something right the very first time you've done it. And even if it's the 100th time you've done it, it's okay to still maneuver through and see, this way feels really good. Oh, I'm not doing that again, and you learn and you grow from it. There was something I saw long ago, this family that celebrated failures. I loved that so much.
It's Meet the Robinsons. That's a wonderful, it's the cartoon, right? Meet the Robinsons or something like that. Where the kid, he tries they're inventors, and he tries an invention, and they're sitting at the table, right? And the kid's like, I da-da-da, and I da-da-da, and it didn't work. And the one kid that's new to the family is like feeling that, oh, he's going to get in trouble because he failed. And then the whole family, like this tension of everyone, they're just hanging on their seats, and then they all erupt in celebration. You failed! Wonderful! Congratulations! I thought that was the most empowering cartoon I'd ever seen when Maddie was a kid.
Yes, it is, because it's all about just practicing and really just alleviating the pressure about needing to show up in a certain way. You try it. And like, even today, we're like, technology is pretty much my nemesis. We're like, how does this work? What do? We don't even know. We're just going to show up and hope for the best. And this will evolve, and we're okay with that, because we know what's important is the message and the intention, and the rest of the stuff will fall into place as it needs to. But, had we decided, well, we don't know what we're doing, so we're not going to do it, or we can't do it 100%, so we're not going to do it, these messages wouldn't even be out there. We would just be on the phone with our 4 or 5 hour conversation saying, oh, we should have recorded that. But sometimes it's okay just to get out there and see what happens. And then you learn and you grow. But sometimes you can't see the next step until you take the first one. So you got to take one step and then see what happens. And then you modify a little bit and you refine a little bit and you let yourself be on the journey. And it's like, oh, think about how that feels. I'm just going to take a step and see how that feels. And then maybe I'll take another step when I feel like it. Maybe not, but I'm going to allow myself to process through at my own pace, see what happens, and learn and grow along the way. And that's the journey. That's the reason for being here. It's to love ourselves, to love each other, and to evolve. And when you know that there's no, perfection police that's going to scold you or punish you for practicing, but you're going to be able to expand, that's exciting. So face plant, get out there, epically fail and see what happens, because it's just a lot more fun that way. And humor, you absolutely need humor to laugh at yourself.
Yeah. It's so liberating to let go, but we tend to take ourselves very, very seriously. And I agree. The higher your comedic, the capacity for comedy within life, I feel like it's just easier to cope, especially right now with things. But just hearing you say does it feel good? If it feels good, it's probably good for you. If it doesn't feel good, stop, drop, and roll away from that. People, do it. Stop, drop, and roll. That is not your thing. That is not your way. It's all about, if you can drop. This is a thing that I'm seeing that's really dissolving right now. Our culture really celebrates being up in the head. I'm out thinking. Think about all of our metaphors, all of our little slogans and sayings. It's all about, jockeying for the first place and out thinking this person, and it's all mental. It's very mental. But what is not celebrated and what is often ridiculed is this idea about sitting in the heart space and listening to your heart and thinking from your heart, because the heart can't be subjugated. The brain can be subjugated easily, quite easily. Our programming, you want to learn about programming? The Century of the Self. It's a BBC production, 4-part series. You can find it on YouTube, watch it. Your life will never be the same. I really encourage you, if you want to learn about the programming of the American culture and the American public, including you, no one is exempt unless you're out living in a cave, right? But anyway, we are programmed to stay in the headspace and stay out of the heart. Well, that's good for survival. It's a good way to stay away from the saber-toothed tiger who wants to eat you for dinner. But in all other ways, it's not a liberating experience. It's a very constricting and contracting experience to always be up in your head, because your head can be fooled easily. But when you're in your heart space, you are in a resonant space that feels energy. And what we are often not told is that we're actually quite brilliant and magical creatures. We can do a lot more than we are led to believe that we can. And the beginning, from my experience, from where we are right now, the way to understand that and to learn that and experience that is to just get into your heart space a little bit more, because that's where true information comes. That's where spirit speaks to you. That's where your guides speak to you from. That's where those messages come to. We're not in judgment. We're not in an analytical space when we're in our heart, right? And so that's where we can actually learn true and valuable information, true truth. That's where that energy comes in to tell us, that isn't for you. You get a question, you get a request, you get a suggestion, and your heart knows, your soul knows what is best for you in regards to that question. But your brain, that's where the programming sits, and your brain is going to go, now, if you say no to her, there will be repercussions. There will be consequences. You will be ostracized. You will feel guilty. She will make you, on and on and on and on and on. Well, those things may be true. They might not be true. But what is really true is how your heart feels. And that is where your energy is honest and really resonant with the truth of who you actually are and what is actually best for you. So our society really does a good job of tricking us into staying right up here, and even more often than that in the reptilian brain, which is where we experience our fight or flight, and the trauma experience keeps us in this state of survival, which is where we get triggered, which is where we feel like there's not enough, and we've got to fight for what we want, and all of those lies, all of those lies. That's where the lies sit. But when we can remember to stay in our harmony and in our heart space, then we can actually act in a way that's in our best interest, and then that frees up everyone to experience their own. You're not charging that victim template, because you're empowering yourself and empowering that other person to fail forward, and you're not feeling like you have to rescue, save, or all of these things that we're taught to do. Maybe as women, it doesn't really matter what we are. Those are the things that are celebrated by our culture. Our movies enforce that. Our TV shows enforce that victim savior template is played over and over and over again, to the point where we are tricked into believing that's reality, and it's really, really not. Would you say?
Yeah, it's bringing me into so many channels within that. And I love, again, pulling things, like you said, in simplest form and tuning into the heart space. We're both analytical people and extremely curious. So we're like, what happens when, and what happens this, and what happens when we do that? And so we're looking at all of those things. But I think, I know we've both been practicing what's relevant, pick out the relevancy, and then feel the truth. So we see these ideas, we bring them in, and we feel if they're true or not. And this is a practice. I was certainly not born this way. Certainly not born this way. Oh my gosh, it's been a journey. But when you start to just open to the potential of what resides in the heart space, this is where our truth is, like you say. And I was just witnessing this morning, and it kind of pulls into this conversation where we adopted this cat like 6 months ago, and she would flinch whenever you'd go to pet her, and she was very skittish, and some cats just are, but I could tell and I could feel that she was traumatized, and I don't know to the extent, because I can't go in there, it just hurts my heart too much to see it all, but I'm focusing on her healing. And I was witnessing her, and she desperately wants love, but when new people come into the house, she'll arch her back like, oh, pet me, but she's just out of reach. She wants it, but she's just too afraid to really come into their orbit and their space. And I witnessed her doing this. She's getting better and better, but now that she's feeling safe, but she grew up in a place where she didn't feel safe, or she was traumatized, and so she doesn't feel safe. And I started thinking about how this affects people. When we grow up with trauma, we don't trust. And because we don't trust, it translates into not trusting ourselves. And the thoughts and the loops and the patterns all come around, and we pull from the backstory to find the truth, which isn't even true. And we confuse ourselves with even being able to translate what's going on. But as we tune into our heart space, you can feel if something is for you or not. And from that place of resonance and truth and feeling, you act from that place. And so with the head, you're not focusing on the trauma anymore. With the heart, you're focusing on your truth, which is of light and love. And if you focus there, you start to become that more and more. You start to create that more and more. You start to draw in that energy more and more into your experiences. And so it really is just settling into that space and seeing, who am I? And the other thing that came through was people that that maybe they were ridiculed a lot as a child, or told to be quiet, or, go away, or whatever. There's all these things that we, sort of internalize as we grow up. Imagine to have a child that is completely nurtured. And I think about my kids. I mean, they're so confident because I was so focused on letting them know, you are beautiful, you're intelligent, you're creative, you're amazing, you're extraordinary. And I see them just taking names, and I'm like, oh, it just makes me feel so good and so proud. And I think that's all people need, is just, to be loved and to be nurtured through it. And the same thing with our little adopted cat. It's like you get nurtured and you get loved, and you can thrive in that place. But if you're expecting it to come from external resources, and you don't feel that within you, you're not going to be able to create that. All of this has to start from within. So if being loved and held and supported and honored and respected and cherished is not within your experience, think about how you feel within, and even touch, like Jen said before with that exercise, moving through a day where you just feel that way, and reflecting back on how that felt, anchoring that in through that heart space, and begin to create this energy for yourself. And when you do, all of a sudden you change your reality, and you start creating and co-creating with the universe in a way that you've never thought possible. But when you hold intention with that, and you move from your heart space, it happens so quickly and effortlessly, and you start to realize how efficient you can be at changing a world just from changing how you feel and change what you're focusing on. But to know you have that as an access point is so important. And as simple as getting into your heart space and feeling good there can start to make changes for you in a positive way. Thoughts on any of that?
It's amazing, right? I mean, because really, Jean, I've heard you say this several times, and I want to bring it back around, because you're so brilliant at explaining how, just what explaining energy, and that the nature of everything is energy. Everything is energy. So if we, and that, again, we feel energy here, we see data here, we see constructs, we see programming, we see we see belief systems. So when we look from our eyes and our brain, we see what we're told exists. When we see from our heart space, we actually see energy, right? So could you just speak for a minute about, just for like Energy 101, what would you say to someone who is tuning in and for the first time is hearing about energy. So we know about energy from a scientific level, but from your perspective, what are the few really important things to remember about what is energy, and what, just like energy 101.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good question. This was a really interesting concept that, I meditate a lot, and I'm a very visual person. So I read emotional energy for a living, basically. And I see where the blocks are contained within people's systems. And when if I'm on a one-on-one session, I'll explain what I see. And, 100% of the time, the clients are like, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel, because I can see what's happening in the energy. And this is something I've developed over the years. But when I first started, basically feeling your emotions is tuning into your energy. And I asked for a visual a while ago about it. And they said, basically, let's say you have a lot of, excuse me, anger in your body, and you're enraged and you're fighting injustice, and you're seeing injustice, and you're wanting to engage in the fight and all these things. And you've got this aggressive kind of fight energy, anger bubbles within you. So let's say all the energy are like little bubbles, right? So anger bubbles might carry the color of like a dark color, right? It's a heavy, dense, congested kind of color. So what happens is, let's say you're 90% anger bubbles, you will interact with 90% of that similar energy from the environment. Whatever you are, you are calling in that similar frequency or vibration within your experiences. So if you're angry, you will encounter situations that match that frequency. So anything that could possibly make you angry and match that to continue to revitalize that energy will. So that's why energy clearing is so important, because sometimes we can't manage our emotions head on, because they contain a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of intensity. We don't have to go through the step-by-step of the pain and everything that we've been through. It's like, oh, that's just so heavy and it's heart-wrenching. And, we don't have to relive that pain. But if you go into the access point of energy, you can decongest your field, you can clear your field, and you release everything that's attached to that energy that you cleared. So that energy holds belief systems, it holds energetic traumas, emotional traumas, it holds all of that stuff. But when you clear the energy, then all of a sudden you feel lighter, and you're like, I'm not as triggered by that anymore. I don't really feel anything about that experience anymore. You come into this beautiful state of neutrality. So when you start to decongest your field, and you can find YouTube videos on clearing your chakra systems or energy clears, or, there's tons of videos out there, whatever you're drawn with. But when you start to decongest your field and you tune into your heart space, you come in from more of a place of love. And I see unconditional love as these beautiful, like a soft pink blanket kind of feel. It's just like super warm and light and fuzzy and soft and welcoming, and just feels really snuggly. When you contain those energy bubbles, all of a sudden you start to interact with those in your environment. And all of a sudden you have friendships like this, and you have relationships like that, and you have, these beautiful moving parts that match what you contain within you shifts. So emotions are really indicative as to where your energy is. Yeah. So if you're feeling angry and enraged and fighting injustice and all of these things, you're keeping yourself in a lower density. If you choose to focus on the love, the potential, the ability to expand and to embody everything that you want to be, you create that for yourself as an experience, as well as give the collective energy permission to do the same. Is that helpful?
Amazing. That was amazing. It's exactly what I was looking for. And I think such an important truth to reinforce right now, as I see that there are so much to be enraged about right now. We are becoming aware. Some of us have always been aware of the inequality that happens around the world and in this country. Others are just awakening to this, but in all ways, I see the media reinforcing over and over and over again these images that create a sense of rage as it should when we see anyone whose civil liberties and right to live and right to life is being completely disregarded. That is an outrageous image and truth that's out there. It's unfathomable that in this day and age that these things are still happening. And so that's at the very top of the brain right now, as it should be, that these things need to be looked at and discussed and rearranged, and consequences we need to start seeing things happening, which I see this movement for equality is really a beautiful thing. We're seeing that these inequalities are being at least focused on, and change is happening. But at the same time, I think it's really important to remember, and this is an astrologer that I've followed for a long time, and she has always said, you cannot feel badly enough for a person, situation, event, etc., to affect change with your I feel so terrible for that person. That energetically will never, can never, and could never, ever, ever work. So, right, take care of your energy. Don't go there. Don't allow yourself to be enveloped in these. Pick up the phone and call your congressperson. Pick up the phone and call that mayor and say, I want to know why this murder has not been case reopened. Whatever the case may be, take action. That really helps get you out of that stagnation of really, really dense, low, horrible energy. Set the timer on that. We know if you need to feel that for a few minutes, okay, set the timer and then figure out what you're going to do to create an action step to help you move that energy, right? Because again, hurricane comes along and devastates an area of compassion. You feel horrible, but if you feel horrible for 24 hours straight, you have done those people no good, and
Right.
you have really just put yourself in a pit of despair, right?
Yes. I love that you bring that up for so many reasons, because when we do, let me back up. There's so much coming through. Let's say if you see these people that are devastated from the hurricane, like I love that I think we all need the reminders to put a timer on it. I love that so much, because it is so important to feel it. Let yourself feel it. It's so important always to let yourself feel your feelings, but to stay in it and to perpetuate it and to expand that does no one any good. And I talk to parents about this a lot. If you are worried about your kid, if you are feeling sorry for them, that they're having challenges in their life, if you're inflicting any low density vibrations towards them, they feel that, and you're actually compounding that dense energy on top of them. So you can see these people that are devastated from a hurricane and you go, oh my God, that would be horrible. But instantly, as soon as you can turn that around, you send them love, you send them empowerment, you send them potential, you do something actively with that to shift that energy. Because two things happen. Number one, you keep your vibration up because you're not lowering into this pity, victim, all this, demolished whatever, aftermath of the storm, but you're actually saying them, okay, so there was some major stuff that needed to be cleared out right there. I know you got this, and you can find your way, and it's going to be even better. Put a positive spin on everything that you can to keep yourself up, and number two, to help that person or the demographic or those people. You can help them by sending them empowerment energy. That's what you always do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just the statement, I believe in you. I believe in you. I believe that you are a powerful creator. I believe that you can create the experience you want to be having. We are taught, and we tend to believe that things have to be hard. If a solution isn't hard, it ain't no solution. No, right. Negative, right? Time out, away from that thing. Because this is the beautiful part about energy, and what I see so many people awakening to the truth that we can affect real change just by changing our energy and our focus or our perspective of a thing, place, person, event, situation, movement, etc. Right? So oh gosh. So when a commercial comes on and it's showing children who are, you know, or something horrible, and you hear that music. So for me, that's clue number one, red flag number one. That music hits me right in the gut, and I'm like, I already don't like it. Okay. So that lets you know, oh, they're going to come with their hand out. Not that those children don't need help, but when you get into that, oh my God, that it's just horrible. I feel terrible. I'm going to send them $10. No, that energy that you send with those $10 is the energy of despair, of I don't believe in you. You are powerless. You are a victim. And then what do? You charge that energy with your $10. And what change has happened? I'm not saying that small little grassroots movements don't help. They do, for sure. Help the person who can't feed, that you can see in your neighborhood, if you feel empowered to do something. But what I'm speaking more to is this movement of energy, because if you look at the quantum field, it's all energy. My energy, I can send a flash of energy to Jen Atman over, she's miles away from me, and she feels that instantly, right? So we must begin to make room for the possibility that we are super powerful humans, and that our energy creates and affects change, and that is an active, not a passive process of sending energy. I believe in you. I know that you are powerful. I see your strength. I see how amazing you are. You are beautiful. That is a solution. That simple act of turning our focus from, oh, poor thing, oh, I just feel so bad. You know, we all know people. I used to do that, right? Negative. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's crazy because when you get into that energy, and it just lowers everybody. But if you can always come at this place of, the other thing with, sorry, I'm kind of going in circles now, but as we're moving from 3D to 5D, 3D is the separation consciousness. We're moving into more unified consciousness. So it's no longer about you and versus me. It's about all of us together. And if you're feeling into your own sense of empowerment and your own abundance and worthiness and all these things, but then you're distancing yourself from the other person, saying, poor you, it's still increasing the separation consciousness. But if you're feeling into your own potential and you're choosing to see that person at their potential, you're increasing this unified consciousness. You're helping to uplift the whole. You're helping to empower the whole, and you're keeping yourself uplifted. It's a win-win-win-win-win all across the board, and helping the entire process of ascension, as well as helping to uplift those people. And people have to be in their suffering sometimes. We've all been through extremely challenging stuff. And when we can move through it and find the courage and the strength and the conviction and get through it on the other side, you're like, whoo, wow, that was intense. Don't say I want to do that again, but whoo, I'm glad that's over with. And I feel different after you cross that threshold. And so when you see people in suffering, we all come in here with lessons to learn. We choose these aspects to come in here with. And when you can see someone going, oh, damn, girl, you came in with a lot to learn. Like, you are a badass. I know that's intense. And wow, that's awesome. And you are so amazing for tackling that. Like, that's the kind of energy we can bring to any suffering that we see, as opposed to the heart-wrenching things. And it's like the old ways of being are to trigger that manipulation of guilt and of everything else. It's a lot of manipulation. And manipulation doesn't have to be a negative word unless it's utilized in a negative way. You can manipulate energy in a positive way, just from feeling light, feeling love, feeling that sense of expansion, and pushing that outward and knowing that you're making a difference. You can manipulate energy that way too. So it's all a matter of perspective,
Brilliant. Absolutely. Yes. And honoring a person's path. I honor your path. If you're in a moment, because you're right, we all have lessons to learn, and we have all suffered or will suffer. There are challenges. We're here to learn. We're here to sharpen our skills. And that doesn't happen when we're laying on the couch with no challenges. We learn growth. Our growth edge is more often than not due to challenges. So to honor the choices a person made, a person made on a soul level before they came in to this giant playground of learning and life and realization and awareness. I honor your path. I will not denigrate your experiences by calling you a victim or treating you as a victim or sending you victim energy. I honor your path. I honor what you came here to do. I lend you a hand. I send you blessings. I send you beautiful power and energy, and I honor you, but I will not take you down with my guilt, shame, lower vibrational feelings, right?
Absolutely. I feel like it's just time to give ourselves permission to feel good, give other people permission to feel good. That's really, what we're stepping into is, and I feel like it's probably a good place to close too, is just leaving people with this idea that, if you feel good, then you help the planet. So do things that feel good, do things that bring you joy, do things that help you feel uplifted. And as long as you're focusing on doing that, you're helping yourself and you're helping the collective energy to do the same. So it's simple. And, as adults, we like to complicate. So shelve all those spinny looping thoughts, shelve them all and just come into your heart space and feel, what is my perfect day? What am I going to do to create that? And move in that direction step by step. That's all you need to do. It's so much more simple than what we think. And it's just, that's it. One step at a time.
That's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to close and a beautiful message to close on. I would encourage anyone who is feeling a little disoriented with the changing times that we find ourselves in, stay open and curious. The more we resist and the more we try to control, the more challenging this is going to be. So staying in a place of power and staying open and curious, what would it look like if? These are really important. It's an important place to be, to stay open and curious and not try to constrict and contract, staying in your feeling center and staying in your heart space, and knowing that all is for us. Everything is perfect the way it is, and we are birthing a brand new earth, and it is a beautiful. We are blessed to be here, to be on the ground, the boots on the ground right now. We are blessed to be experiencing and witnessing this just amazing transformation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love, again, the reiteration of coming into the heart space and having curiosity. That's probably my favorite word or expression is being curious. What happens when? What happens when we try this? What happens when we do that? What does that feel like? Why am I feeling that? Wow, that's intense. What's going on in there? Just asking yourself to get to know your inner worlds, because there's so much beauty within each person. And when you get to know yourself at those levels, you realize that's pretty extraordinary and that's fun in there. And then you start to see that depth in other people and you can meet them there. And the dynamic of relationships becomes so much more enriching and beautiful. And it just continues to get into that depth and more of a foundational, substantial sort of dynamic. It's just such a beautiful place to live. And so in closing, I just wanted to say too, that Jen and I are continuing we have these conversations anyways, as the energy shifts and as we continue to move through this. And there's so much uncertainty that's coming right now, but it's all in such positive movement. And so we're going to continue to meet like this when we feel it's calling us every couple of weeks or so, and have these conversations. So if you have enjoyed listening to us and want more, we will be chiming in to share more and explore more and see what else we can kind of come into alignment with as we're stepping into the new earth, because it's brand new for everybody. everybody. And so to feel like you have somebody who gets it, or somebody can give some additional insights, or, learn as we all kind of approach this new platform, we feel really excited about it. So we hope you can share in our excitement, or at least have curiosity about it. It might be super terrifying, and that's okay too. we go to those places occasionally ourselves. But yeah, we can just go with curiosity forward and see where we go, see where we're led.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jean. This has been just amazing, and I look forward to our next discussion. And just thank you, everyone, for tuning in and sharing this experience with us. We're honored to share what comes through for us, and just very excited for our next experience together.
Sounds good. Big hugs to everyone, and we'll see you next time.